Good morning. I'm Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, and I'm very pleased and honored to be here in Poughkeepsie today to announce a set of grants that will help save the lives of our law enforcement officers, men and women who work day and night to keep our communities safe. I'm joined today by City of Poughkeepsie Police Chief Ronald Knapp, who's our host, State Senator Terry Gibson, Assemblyman Frank Scartatos, I guess that's it for the Assembly. Sergeant Pete Dunn from the Rhinebeck Police Department, Village of Fishkill Police Commissioner Glenn Schofield, and also representatives of the Town of Poughkeepsie Police Department and some of my other colleagues in law enforcement. This is, in my view, one of the most important initiatives our office has yet undertaken, and I appreciate my colleagues for being here with us today, and I appreciate even more the great work that they do every day in cities and towns across our state, where law enforcement officers put their lives on the line in order to keep everyone else safe. Everyone knows that law enforcement is a dangerous business, that the brave men and women who serve confront dangerous, often violent criminals on a daily basis. They do it out of a commitment to service and a commitment to protect the rest of us from violence. We owe them a debt of gratitude, but far too often people give lip service to their support for law enforcement. We're here today because in our office, and I think we speak on behalf of all the people of the state of New York who want us to put our money where our mouth is. We owe it to every one of our law enforcement officers to do everything we can do to ensure their safety while they are ensuring ours. That's why in June my office announced the inVEST partnership. And we've dedicated $3.5 million in criminal and civil forfeiture funds to reimburse local law enforcement agencies for up to 50% of the cost of new or replacement bulletproof vests. Bulletproof vests, and we've got a couple of examples. They're different vests that are approved for different kinds of conduct. Some are used outside of sort of like flak jackets for a SWAT team. Some are softer and worn under uniforms. But every one of them tested and approved by the National Institute for Justice, is an essential life-saving piece of equipment for law enforcement officers. We know 2 weeks ago a suspected sex offender opened fire on a New York Police Department detective and 2 U.S. Marshals in New York City. He shot the detective once in the chest, a bullet that was stopped by the bulletproof vest, and Police Commissioner Bratton said, but for the vest, that officer would be dead. He's recovering, he's fine, but that is the kind of danger our officers face every day. They never know when a routine traffic stop or the serving a warrant is going to turn into a gun battle, and we have a duty to ensure that our police officers, the men and women who serve us every day, have the best possible equipment to keep them as safe as they can be. That is the purpose of the inVEST partnership. We opened the grant application process on June 9th, and today we're announcing funding for the law enforcement agencies in the Hudson River Valley. I'm proud to announce that Hudson River Valley law enforcement agencies are going to be receiving more than $381,000 to support the purchase of 968 life-saving bulletproof vests. That includes 10 vests for the city of Poughkeepsie, 12 vests for the village of Rhinebeck, 20 vests for the village of Fishkill, 74 vests for the Kingston Police Department, 36 vests for the Ulster County Sheriff's Office. Statewide, we have now approved more than $2.4 million to support the purchase of almost 7,000 vests, and we will continue to make them available. The application process is still open, and we're encouraging other law enforcement agencies to apply. We created this partnership, I must note, because of a failure of the federal government, because of a breakdown of our government in Washington. There was a statute passed in Washington to deal with the fact that police officers were often in the line of fire, and police departments under budget pressure often didn't have the resources to provide the most up-to-date and protective equipment. This is something that it's not hard to figure out. Since 1984, 95 officers in New York State have been killed by gunfire, including 4 in the Hudson Valley. So we know that no police officer should have to go into duty without a bulletproof vest, and yet the federal government has failed to refinance a bill that was passed in 1998, broad bipartisan support, to provide exactly what we're doing today, 50% of the cost of reimbursement for a bulletproof vest. New York State got under that federal program about $25 million over the years and purchased over 212,000 bulletproof vests with it. They saved lives, but Even this completely common sense, inexpensive, life-saving program has been a victim to the dysfunction in Washington. The refunding was blocked. Since 2010, New York has seen our federal funding for these bulletproof vests fall by 81%. So our office is stepping in with the drug and crime forfeiture funds we collect to step in where the federal government has stepped out. It is disgraceful and unacceptable that they're not funding it, and I assure my colleagues today that I am not being quiet about it. I'm actually lobbying pretty hard with my colleagues in the federal government to try and get them to restart the funding, because even though we're able to help our police departments in New York, there are police departments all over America that, since the feds cut the funding, are not able to purchase bulletproof vests. And it's important to understand that more than 3,000 law enforcement officers have been saved by ballistic body armor in the last 30 years. We can ensure the same protection for the men and women of New York, but we really should insist that the program be restored federally so that the law enforcement officers all across the country can have vests. We need vests for new officers, but vests also should be replaced periodically. I think it's recommended that every 5 years. Also, we have situations where people gain weight or lose weight and you have to adjust a vest. No one should be stuck with a hand-me-down vest. No one should be using a vest that's outlived the time when it's recommended to be set aside. So that's what we're guaranteeing here in New York and urging our federal counterparts to restore for the rest of the country. And with that, I'd like to introduce our host today, the City of Poughkeepsie Police Chief Ronald Knapp.
Thank you. Am I the one that gained weight?
I know comment a lot of things.
Okay. Obviously, we're thankful to the Attorney General for taking his time to come here today and supporting this program. As he stated quite accurately, the lifespan of a vest is typically 5 years. So we, on a regular basis, replace about 10 vests, or want to replace 10 vests for our 96 officers every year. We have new officers coming on that need vests. We also replace vests. Last year, we seized over 60 handguns in the city of Poughkeepsie. This year, we're over 30 handguns already. And in the first 7 months of the year, we had 28 officers injured in the line of duty. Now, fortunately, most of these are minor injuries. But when an officer responds on one of these calls or enters a situation, he can't be thinking about his equipment and whether it's going to fail or not be available. He has to be thinking about the situation and how to contain it. So having the process support the officer, and by that I mean the money being there and that the purchasing takes place and the replacements are done, is very important, because at the end of the day, we want those officers to go home, and we also want the community to be safe. I'm also going to speak for some of the other departments because I serve in another role as president of the Mid-Hudson Police Chiefs Association, and we represent a lot of small departments. Now, in our case, we have a large budget. Sometimes we can move money around to pick up deficiencies that take place. But in those smaller departments, such as maybe Rhinebeck or Fishkill, where the funding is small, the purchase of a vest for $1,000 very much could impact whether they replace it or not. I think I saw the city of Kingston is replacing a lot of vests. To me, as an administrator, that tells me that the city of Kingston is probably behind in the replacement and is now replacing all their vests up there because they have to and they have the opportunity. So that's critical, because they could have officers out there. So on behalf of all the departments, we thank the Attorney General for being here. We also thank the Senator and Assemblymen for supporting this and also being here and taking their time, because obviously they're big supporters of us as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. And now it's a real pleasure to bring up someone who is a terrific colleague in government who understands very well the challenges to the state government in this time of disarray at the federal level, your state senator, Terry Gibson.
Thank you very much. Well, it's an honor to be here today, and I just want to thank the Attorney General for all that he is doing to help our local law enforcement agencies, and especially those in my Senate district in Dutchess and in Putnam County. We are trying so very hard to create more jobs here in the Hudson Valley and to improve our economy. And while we are having success at that, it's critical that we maintain environments within our communities that are safe. People want to live and do businesses in places that are safe, and to create safety, you need a well-equipped and well-funded and well-staffed police department. So that's why we have always been committed to working with our local police departments and law enforcement agencies and doing everything we can, and to have the help of the Attorney General on this very important issue is something that we are very grateful for. I also just want to acknowledge behind me are the men that work so hard to protect our communities and risk their lives every day, and for them we are eternally grateful. Thank you again for letting me be a part of this, and thank you for your help.
All right, thanks, Senator. And now another great advocate for law enforcement and for its community generally, Assemblyman Frank Skartatis.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I, too, wish to thank the Attorney General for this very common-sense investment that has been proven to save lives. I think we all know that we're only as good as the equipment and the tools we have to work with in the performance of our jobs and our duties. And this piece of life-saving equipment has been proven to be effective, and it's just the right thing to do to provide the necessary tools that they need, because our police officers often find themselves at the flashpoint of violence and disregard for life, and we have to do all we can to protect them. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all of my colleagues.